snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So I am here today to do some single issue reviews. I've been reading tons of single issues recently, so you'll see this and one other video coming up very soon so that I can review them all in a chunk and you guys can sort of see what I've been reading, what styles they are, just what I thought of them. So let's get started. The first one that I'm going to be reviewing is issue number 15 of The Wicked and the Divine and issue number 16 of The Wicked and the Divine. So this is what the front covers look like, or at least the ones that I have. Starting with issue number 15, this has Gillen, Hands, McKelvie and Wilson. This is still part of the guest artist sort of run. I don't love the guest artists, I will be honest, because I love the original team. I do really like this cover. I think that's super sexy. And the artwork inside this one looks like this. So for me, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of this. It was very sort of peculiar. I didn't really care for it. I thought that it was just a bit sketchy. It was a bit weird to me. Like, I'm not a huge fan of this. I did, however, like the story. I thought that Amaratsu's story was really interesting. I think that we did get some really emotional scenes that connected the sort of reader to the character a lot more, and I liked seeing her backstory. I thought that that worked well as a guest issue because it did sort of self-contain itself and it was an interesting story to read, but I just didn't like the art style of this one, so I couldn't really rate it that high, and the story was just okay. It wasn't like an amazing continuation of what was happening. It was more of an interlude. For this one I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I then read issue number 16, which has Gillen, Duca, Lopes and McKelvie. So this is a different team again, and I definitely preferred the art style in this one, I think. The art style is a lot cleaner. It's definitely more sort of cartoony, but I do think the colour tones are a lot nicer, and I don't like the expressions that they have. Like, they're really over-exaggerated, and that's not a huge thing with me. I don't really care for that. This was the backstory of Marghread, which I really enjoyed though, because I thought that the story was really interesting. I don't know, I think some of these guest issues can get a bit confusing and a bit lost because they are so different in style, and I do think it's an experiment that was nice to try, but I'm a bit over it now. I would like to get back to the original team, and I would like to see what they're going to do to continue the story rather than a lot of backstory for most of our characters, which is what we've been getting with the last few. I did prefer this. I thought this was a much better interpretation and a much better story overall, so I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars as opposed to the 3.5 that I gave the other one. I will say that I do still really like the illustrated story that we get on the back page that is by the original team. I think that works really nicely in both of the issues, well, in all of the issues, and I like that we are still getting that even though they're not necessarily doing the whole thing, because it kind of gives me hope that they will return to the original team sometime. Moving on to my Discovering Marvel pick of the month, this is Nova, issue 1. It is the first one in the all-new, all-different Marvel series of Nova, and I'm definitely happy that I decided to start this with Michael. You can go and check out Michael's videos. He's been reading a ton of Marvel recently, so I will put links to his videos below if you want to check out them, because he is an expert in Marvel, whereas I am completely new to it. However, both of us really enjoyed this issue. We both thought it was really fun and a very good entry point for people who don't know anything about Marvel. I would say that this definitely can be a starting point. I didn't feel as though I was really confused, that I was thrown in at the deep end. I felt as though I understood what was going on. Yes, there might be a bit of stuff that I'm not necessarily getting, because obviously it's a continuation, but I am understanding what is going on in the here and now. And that was something good about this, because I did feel like some of the other new released stuff by Marvel hasn't been as good or hasn't been as easy to enter into. So I would say for issue 1 of Nova, I think the artwork was not my favourite. It's clean, it's alright, but that's kind of all it is. Not a huge fan of it. As you guys can see, I'm putting pictures up because I read this digitally, so I don't have a physical edition of this, but I did think it was a good entry point. I like the character, I like the relationship that the main character, called Sam, has with his father. They both seem to be really good friends, which I think is something that isn't explored enough in stories, so I definitely appreciated that element. And I do think it's a really interesting concept. They are superheroes, of course. They sort of can fly around. They've got these sort of crazy suits that seem to be able to give them the ability to sort of fly off and do all sorts of crazy things. and I think it's one of those series that the more I read of it, the more I'll enjoy it, hopefully. I really liked it as a start point, so I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next, I will be showing you guys From Under Mountains, issue 1 and issue 2. These are the first two in this series. I read these a while ago now. It's actually a series which is a spin-off from the 8House series, which was originally created by Brandon Graham and Marion Churchland. Marion Churchland then went off and decided once her 2 issues of 8House were done, she would then continue that story and sort of explore that world that she created more with this series. So this is the spin-off. I really, really love Marion Churchland's art style. The covers are by Marion Churchland. You can get a feel for her art style. I think it's incredible, but inside it's not quite the same. It's more cartoony inside, as you can see. So this is what the art style looks like. Some of the pages are really, really beautifully coloured, as you'll agree, I'm sure. The expressions and stuff I think are pretty good in this. I do not like massively over-exaggerated expressions, but I think that this one works well. There are some pages which are by Churchland, as you can see. This one's really pretty. It's a map of the world and what's going on. Basically, this is a kind of mystical, fantastical world where we have all sorts of craziness going on. We have these kind of witch people who are very, very peculiar. They have these sort of ability to do charms and magic and creepy things. We also have a society where a sort of king ruling over it, and in this one we get introduced to the king and his son and his daughter. He definitely favours his son. He wants his son to be, you know, royal and awesome like him, and he wants him to go off and do big adventures and sort of make a name for himself, whereas his daughter, he doesn't really appreciate her as much. He doesn't really understand her that much, but he really should. So this one is more about introducing characters to you and sort of setting up the story a little bit more. There are a lot of things like this which are sort of witch rituals. It's very much got this vibe of sort of small town cult, that sort of thing. I do think that the art style is nice. Like, I don't have anything against it, I just prefer Marion Churchland's style, that's my main thing. So for this one I ended up giving it a 3 stars overall. I think it's a good beginning, but I do think that you need more than just this to really get a feel for what's happening. So then I picked up the second one when that came out. This one, again, it's illustrated by the same team and everything. I do think that this one definitely introduced a lot more threads into the story, and I love the art style for some of these pages. Very, very purple, very, very cool. You see these sort of kind of whimsical, mystical forms. They're not really people, they're like very peculiar, wispy beasts, and it's just a lot of magic in this world. This is the thing, it's kind of asking you to suspend your disbelief and sort of just accept that there's going to be crazy things going on. There's going to be magic, there's going to be weird things, there's going to be weird people, there's going to be really odd rituals. And if you can suspend that disbelief for a while and sort of get invested in this story, then I think you'll really like it. I did like that there were some pages that Brandon Graham did. This one is by Brandon Graham, this is his art style. And then these pages at the very end are about the 8 gods of Akhara. These pages are drawn by Marion Churchland and I love them. I think they're really, really beautiful. I mean, I get the feeling that this series is going to be big. It's going to be large in scope, it's going to be fantastical, it's going to have lots of magic, it's going to have runes, it's going to have all sorts of crazy things going on. I feel as though when the first 5 are out, it will start to make sense. I don't think it really makes sense on its own as it is now. The first 2 issues have been really interesting to read and I really enjoy reading them, but they are a peculiar story. The world is odd, the people are odd, and everything is a bit on edge and a bit peculiar. But I like that. I like that feeling. I like the sort of unusualness of this world. So I am interested in continuing. I will definitely be continuing with this series because I do think it is very, very cool. But it is weird, and I would say that maybe it's one to wait for the actual volume to come out because I feel as though that would probably make more sense. But I am enjoying it, so who knows. So I ended up giving this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars instead of a 3. So it did go up a little bit from the first one. But I am still very intrigued about where it's going to go, and hopefully it will continue to go up issue by issue. Next I picked up Toil&Trouble issue 2 and then also issue 3. This is the second issue in the retelling of Macbeth, told from the point of view of the witches and sort of focusing on them and giving them the main centre stage. I really like the depictions of the witches and the drawings within this. I read these on Comixology because I didn't get the physical ones because my comic shop didn't have them and I wanted to read them, so I just picked them up there. and I really am enjoying this. I do think that if a volume comes out, I will probably be picking it up because I think they are just beautifully drawn, beautifully illustrated. I do think the story is a little bit more convoluted than Macbeth potentially. It definitely sways away from the original Shakespeare in some places and gives you a little bit of a twisty-turny, interesting story. I do really like the way that it's focused on these three witches. I think that the drawings are fabulous, and I think the story, although there isn't that much of it, is again really interesting. So I'm going to show you guys some of the artwork as I'm talking, and I think you'll agree that the illustration style is very beautiful and definitely one that I admire. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it's all going to go. At the moment where I am in this sort of series, the three witches are having disagreements, two of them, and then one of them is a little bit more sort of taking a backseat, trying not to get involved with the humankind and the war and everything that's going on at the same time. It's all a bit crazy, but I'm really liking the directions that the authors are taking with this and the art style, so I definitely do want to continue on. So the second issue of this I ended up giving a 3.5 stars overall, and then the third issue in this I actually gave a 4 out of 5 stars to, because I felt like the third one upped the ante a bit. It was a bit more interesting, the story was really good, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing where it's going to go. So this is another series that is a bit more like lesser known, I think. I don't think I've seen anyone else talking about it. Same with From Under Mountains, barely anyone's been talking about that. But I really like both of them. I do think they're both really peculiar, sort of fantastical graphic novel series that have just recently started up, so maybe ones to check out if you are interested in sort of fantastical retellings or fantastical storylines. Now moving on to 8House, which is issue number 4. This one is Yorris, and it's by Helen Mazier and Finn Barlow. This is the first in a new arc. Basically 8House is this world where all of the worlds tied together somehow, we don't know how yet, and there's a few issues every now and then they change to a different art team in a different world. So the first 2 issues were focused on Marion Churchland's world, which again has a spin-off called From Under Mountains that I showed you earlier. The second one was a very short 1-issue storyline. It was kind of more sci-fi, and now we're on to the 4th one, which is going to be 2 parts, I believe. So this is the same as the first one. That was 2 parts, then it was 1, and now it's going to be 2 again. It's all a bit confusing, so bear with me. But basically this is the first part in Yorris, in the world of Yorris, which is created by Finn Barlow and Helen Mazier. I saw the artwork of this. I like the front cover, but I saw the artwork inside and I wasn't a huge fan of it to begin with. But now I actually really like it. It's really creepy, this one. And it definitely has sort of magical focus. I don't like over-exaggeration on the eyes and the mouth and stuff. That is the one thing about this art style that I really don't like. But the colouring is stunning, as I'm sure you will agree, and the storyline itself is really interesting. There's all sorts of things like robots and crazy things like that involved in it. There's also magic and runes, and it's bizarre. It is really bizarre, but I like it a lot, and I definitely do want to pick up the second one in this. I haven't picked up the second part yet because I think it only recently came out and my comic shop didn't have it, but I am going to be picking it up very soon for sure, because I really want to continue with this and see where the story is going and what is happening to the characters. So for this one I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars actually. Really enjoyed it, and I definitely was pleasantly surprised to enjoy it, so that was good. It's about a girl who can see sort of spirit forms around people and no one else can see these, and because of this everyone thinks that she is crazy and they all tell her to be quiet and not to intervene when they're having this big meeting about what they're going to do. But of course she can't resist because of how crazy everything is, and I really liked it. I thought it was very well conceived and considered. Finally, I'm going to talk to you about 2 that are more independently published. These are Katzine issue 3 and issue 4, and issue 3 is about mountains, the Dutch campsite memories and sky, and this one is basically beautiful, as I'm sure you will agree. It's just stunning on every page. Love these. I think they're so beautiful. They just look really lovely when you read them, and I find that these are just very relaxing little tiny reads. They are published by Katriona Chapman, who designs everything herself, sells it all herself, and you can buy them direct from her, which is what I've been doing. So I'll put a link to her website down below if you want to order some. I really enjoyed this. It's basically just a sort of retelling of things she's done. She's obviously a very adventurous character, and she's done a lot of things in her life, and I really enjoy hearing about her travel adventures and seeing all the places that she's been to through her pencil drawings of them, which are really beautiful. So gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. And then I picked up the fourth one, which is the last one that is out right now, and it's a special issue, this one, a travel issue, and it talks about Iceland, Canada, New England and New York. And I really, really like this. I think some of the illustrations within this are just flawless and beautiful, as I'm sure you will all agree. They just look really, really lovely. Yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say other than it just looks really lovely. So it's just a really nice, peaceful read, really enjoyable, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So those are all of the single issues that I'm going to be talking about in this video for now. I will have another single issue video coming up very, very soon, which will talk about all sorts of other exciting things I've been reading, and some of those ones in that video are my favourites recently, so definitely check that one out when it comes out. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little chat about the